I'm here with my friend Richard Scott. Hello, Richard.
Andy, great to see you on video.
Yes, and we've got another set of medical stuff. Exciting, you're now joining us in the magazine from which is coming out, which is exciting. So, Pure Media, the magazine, will include a feature column by Dr. Richard Scott, GP.
Well, thank you. Nice to be asked.
Right. Now, before we get into whatever you've brought, I wanted to talk about something which I suspect many people will struggle with in one way or another, especially in the world of the digital age. Do you remember, Richard, going back a little while, repetitive strain injury was everywhere. It was in the headlines, and BBC was there in offices looking, examining the mouse, what's going on. So I've got a little bit of RSI because doing the magazine, I'm doing lots and lots of scrolling with the mouse. So my forefinger is quite tender. Now, I'm not an idiot. I've switched to a better mouse, which is a trackball mouse, which I should have used before, but fine. So I've gone back to that, which is much better. But what's the best way of dealing with RSI other than simply waiting for it to get better? Is there anything we can do?
Well, I'll be honest, very little, because time, and there's a magic number in medicine, which is 6 weeks. And minor things like RSI, given a fair wind, i.e. proper rest, will get better in 6 weeks. So there isn't a matter. And the danger, of course, with taking, say, serious painkillers, which you can do, is, oh, I feel better, and then you carry on using it. In fact, I mean, painkillers can help a tiny amount, but far and away the most important is time and rest. And I always say to people, I remember when I had the equivalent of RSI, which was tennis elbow, actually for once from playing tennis many years ago. Most people get tennis elbow from painting, and it happens, but you can actually get it from tennis. I tried to cheat. I knew the rules. And of course, my tennis elbow just went on longer than it should have done. And when I finally said to myself, look, you need to do everything left-handed, everything left-handed, apart from signing a check, which is what you did in those days. Just do everything left-handed, brushing your teeth, eating, etc. And after 6 weeks, my tennis elbow was better because I played by the rules. And it's the same with RSI.
What's the 6 week window? What's that to do? Is that to do with growth of muscles and stuff?
Inflammation, healing. Yeah, recovery, damaged tendons, damaged muscles, because these fibers are trying to heal. But if you use them, you're splitting them apart as they're trying to heal. And so there's a timeline for inflammation, which is part of the healing response. And you give the body time to do so.
Fine. I'm using a different finger for a mouse wheel, and I've gone to a non-standard mouse. It's one much better for graphics. It's a trackball, which I know some people hate. My wife picks it up and thinks, where's my mouse? For me, I love it because it's much easier for graphics.
Perfect. But play by the rules, and we do better. It's as simple as that.
Although I do remember that I had a bad back years ago, which I know I've said before. I remember being told, because of the particular of my back problem, which was let's get this right, the intercostal muscles between the vertebrae of the spine. Is that right? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, and one of them has stopped working. They reckon completely. One of them was about 80% not working, so lots of pain. So they actually gave me painkillers so I could exercise, ignoring the pain effectively, in order to get these muscles working again.
Yeah, I mean, well, the exercises where you get spasm. I mean, intercostal muscles, to be fair, are between the ribs. Paraspinal muscles are either side of the vertebrae, just to be clear. But the principle is, the trouble is when you get an injury, then the muscles go into reactive spasm over the top, and then the spasm hurts more than the injury half the time. And actually what we do, knowing that the muscles are going to, the muscle fibers will recover, is that we need to get rid of that spasm over the top through massage, little bit of gentle rubbing, gentle moving to loosen up the muscles, knowing that the underlying damage will heal, but we've got to get rid of the spasm because that's so painful. And our tendency, of course, and this is what doctors used to do, is, okay, just lie down, you'll feel better. And of course, you do feel better initially, but then you've got to get through that. And oh my goodness, we just made things worse. So far better to get rid of the spasm, a little bit of active movement, and then underneath muscles get the recovery takes place.
Cool. Which is why we need to speak to doctors, because don't take painkillers for RSI, but do take it for muscles in the right context.
Yeah. RSI needs proper rest and recovery.
Fine, which is what I'm trying to do. Okay, I just thought I'd touch on that because I thought I've had this. I've not had this for years and years and years. I used to drive trucks, so there were some common things that you could have. Not just banging your head, which was common enough, hence the hard hat. Done that too. Only once did I not wear a hard hat. One time. Wow, that hurt. Concussion, not great.
Not great.
Anyway, no, it wasn't. But we do these things and we don't think about them. But then we think, well, we'll just motor through, and yes, but no.
Some things you can get through, but RSI is a classic for, this is a proper overuse injury, hence the name repetitive strain. And, you've just got to let the body recover and then don't do it again.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm not going back to. I'm not doing graphics on a normal mouse. It's not advised. Okay, Richard, what have you got for us this week?
Well, I came across, actually, it was on Premier Radio. I was just listening as I was driving the car, and they reported the result of an interesting survey. And the survey was called What Makes a Good Day? And in this survey, participants were asked this very simple question: what makes a good day? Now, they were at pains to point out this not the very, very best day ever. Now, I've just come back from a holiday in the sun on Cape Verde Islands. It's fun. It was just a pool and beach holiday, very nice. And you can see people by the edge of a pool sipping their cocktails. That's an abnormal day. It's very nice for a time. But what they're talking about in the survey is not a sort of wonderful day in the Caribbean or Cape Verde, but yeah, it was a normal day, but it's still a good day. What makes a good day? An average, if you like, standard but good day. So many of the responses were to be expected, and people wanted some rest, absolutely. Socializing with friends, well, no huge surprise there, and I don't think we need to comment on that. But there were a couple of things which were of interest. Exercise we've talked about before on this show, and we know that exercise, is not really very controversial these days. It's good for us physically, it's good for us mentally. The only question is, will we do it? And by the way, don't do too much, otherwise you get RSI. Steadily building up our exercise and we feel better. I've just been cutting the grass. I've got a moderately large garden. I've been cutting the grass this afternoon in the sunshine in Margate. And I feel better afterwards. I'm a bit stiff, but I feel better because it's been exercising in the sun. That's all good. But interestingly, it took me 3 hours to cut the grass because I've got a big garden. But a good job, it didn't take me more than 5 because the study showed that exercise has its limits. It's good up to 5 hours. But beyond 5 hours, most people are saying, no, that's now too much. And if you like, the subjective experience plummets. So whether you do anything seriously active for a short time, like running or cycling, intense short-lived exercise, or something longer in the garden or a good long walk, that's fine. Over 5 hours, the benefit tails off pretty fast, subjectively. So that was of interest. But of more interest was what I discovered about work. Now, we might think that perfection is literally a Caribbean beach with a cocktail in hand. Work miles away. The office is in England or in the States or wherever people are listening in from. Don't even have your phone because something might pop up on your phone reminding you of work or an email you don't want to answer. Leave it all aside, just nothing to do with the office. But actually, that's not what this survey showed. Working was not precluded, and a good day could most definitely be a working day, as long as it wasn't more than 6 hours. So exercise, not more than 5 hours, working, not more than 6 hours. And again, that's something I think that we have known from the past, that rather than forcing people, say, to work 8-hour days, you can achieve just as much in 6 because you're more motivated and people just feel better. There's better goodwill. So that was of interest. And I'm thinking, okay, how does this fit in with what I know about exercise and work in particular as a Christian medic? And how many times on this show have we talked about science and the Bible dovetailing, and how we, both of us, I think, and maybe perhaps me in particular, love it when science, suddenly, inverted commas, discovers what the Bible's already told us. And I thought, I'll just have a little look at work in the Bible and familiarize myself. And particularly leading up to the point, is work not just good for us, but enjoyable? So I looked into work. And of course, work does come up loads in Scripture. Here's a few examples. 1 Thessalonians 4, Paul tells us to work with our hands. You've been working with your hands excessively, Andy, so just go easy on that one. Mind you, you could use the mouse with your left hand.
That'd be fun.
That'd be fun. But Paul says work with our hands because, and this was interesting, alongside living quiet lives and minding our own business, he says in 1 Thessalonians 4, working with our hands will win the respect of outsiders. In other words, working with our hands is a form of outreach. And in Hebrews 6, one that God won't forget. God will reward us for our work. Hard work, of course, in the Bible is also encouraged. Ruth, if you remember from her book, was commended for all her hard work in the fields by Boaz, who, of course, she eventually ended up marrying, all part of the line from which Christ came. And, of course, Nehemiah bust a gut with all his men rebuilding the temple. Jesus commended the hard work in Matthew 25, the parable of the loaned money. Those who put their money to work. Those are the 5 talents who got 5 more talents. Very, very good. 3 talents and 3 more talents. Very, very good. The chap who had 1 talent and just buried it in the ground, well, he got a very hard time from Jesus because he didn't work hard. And finally, of course, we know that both Paul and Proverbs talk a lot about idleness. Idleness in Paul's letters. Well, people shouldn't eat if they're idle. Now, we're not going to go into the benefit system here, but it's just a general point. Working hard is good for the individual, good for society. But here's the question really from today is it enjoyable? Up to 6 hours. So I looked into that. And to be fair, scripture doesn't have a huge amount to say, but it does have a little bit to say from a slightly different angle. And essentially what it says is this. Not only does scripture emphasize that work is important, but it's beneficial to society. Now, stuff that is beneficial to individuals and society is usually enjoyable, at least in part. And I mentioned to Andy in advance, apart from dentistry.
Yes.
Dentistry is beneficial, I have to say. I'm yet to enjoy it. Although I do like talking to my dentist, who is a Christian, I might say. Lovely guy from South Africa. We always have a good chinwag before I open my mouth and start counting down the minutes to when I can get out. So in my life, dentistry actually goes against this. But generally, stuff that's beneficial is also, so stuff that is good for us and beneficial also is, to a certain extent, enjoyable. And Andy, you know that I'm coming towards the end of my working career. In fact, I've got a sign-off day of July the 1st. You heard it on this day, on this show first.
There you are.
I'm going to finish my work as a GP on July the 1st. But looking back over the last 41 years as a doctor, I can honestly say that work is hard work, but it's almost always enjoyable. I go into work on a Monday and Tuesday mornings, and I can say, yeah, okay, I'm looking forward to what's going to happen that day. There will be some stuff I won't enjoy, and not least when the computer goes wrong. It's an absolute drag. But mainly, I can go in with a smile on my face and say, yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's true for exercise. Exercise is usually hard work, but it's also enjoyable, as my gardening was today. And I just really wanted to finish before we talk about this by a couple of comments from Solomon. So the wisest man that's ever lived. And, as he was approaching the end of his life, he took stock. What have I learnt? And that's where the book of Ecclesiastes comes from. And he says that overall, everything he'd tried and tested and tasted was meaningless, apart from 2 areas in life which he was positive for. One was, and the most important, honour God and keep his commandments. That's his conclusion in Ecclesiastes 12 at the end. Honour God and keep his commandments. Nothing wrong with either of those. But also he said the best thing that people can do is to enjoy their work because that is all they have. Well, we can debate that point because actually we've got a few more things than that, haven't we, with relationships, friends and stuff. But Solomon, looking back on his life, he tried pleasure, he tried wealth, he tried women, he tried this and that and the other. And those were his conclusions. Honour God, keep his commandments and work. And I think that's real wisdom because, it's wonderful that holidays, wonderful that they are. And my time in Cape Verde was fun. But actually, life isn't just about, living until your next holiday, until your day's off. A good day could be an office day too. And I hope, Andy, that when you're sitting in front of your radio, you're not thinking, it's only 3 months to go till I'm on holiday. You're enjoying your day's work as well.
I've never done that. I've met many people who do. They come off their holiday. Oh, I can't wait for the next one. Oh, when did you just come back from your last one? Well, this morning. But we're booking next year. We can't wait for it. And I just think, what a miserable life that must be.
Absolutely. And granted, maybe you and I are more fortunate than some people. I would accept that. But I think, and it's actually very nice, in those of us who get Christianity magazine produced by Premier, I love the fact that one very short article every month is on thank God it's Monday. That's the article. And people, not just thank God it's Friday, the end of the week, thank God it's Monday at the beginning of the week. And people from all different professions are saying, I look forward to my job. Why? Because I can be a Christian at work, whatever their working environment is. And there's a very wide range. Thank God it's Monday. And I think as Christians, that's a good attitude.
When my Jo started her evening 6 to 8 show on a Monday, she wanted to take Monday's head on because there's this image of Garfield the cat. Oh, it's Monday. Not happy. She loves Garfield. So Monday night, she did this thing about what's good. She wanted to reclaim Mondays instead of it's a Monday. She said, you know what? It's a Monday. It's a new working week, new possibilities. So I love how she's taken the spin of it's a really depressing, horrible, disgusting, terrible, bad day to it's a Monday. It's a new week. It's good.
Yeah. And what's got good planned? We don't know. Yeah, every day we simply don't know what he's got planned, but we do know that his plans are good. So let's join in.
I'll tell you one of the things that I don't do this deliberately to shock people, but people find out we work a 6 day week. We have done for a very long time, and they go, "Oh, but what about your 2 day weekend?" And I say, "Look, God said 6 days, rest the seventh. If it's good enough for God, surely it should be good enough for us." And so I've worked a 6 day week for a long time.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, okay, well, certainly when I was a junior doctor, my goodness, and often sadly it was a 7 day week, which was most certainly not good for us. But when I worked abroad in India and then Africa for many years, people don't have 2 day weekends in poor villages. They don't have that luxury. They do understand about Sundays and they try not to work on Sundays, the Christians, but they certainly don't get Saturdays off. Life's not like that. So I think, the luxury, that is a Western luxury. And as you say, it's not biblical.
No, which I don't make a big point of for people. If they have their 2 day weekend, that's fine. But we as a family have worked 6 days for a long, long time because it makes sense. People say, how do you get so much done? Well, I don't have 2 days off a week. That's probably part of it.
I think you're right. But the seventh day is very important. So I make a point of not looking at my emails on Sunday. It's tempting because it's my primary form of communication, more for me than a mobile phone, for example. It's an act of will. They're there. They're on my phone. They're on my computer. I shut them down. I'm not looking at it on a Sunday. That's it. Because otherwise, once you start with one, then you look into all the others, and suddenly, how is this different from any other day of the week? So that's my personal way of keeping the Sabbath, alongside
Yep.
obviously church.
I mean, oddly, we have Saturdays as a day off because we work on a Sunday afternoon. We have two shows going. So Saturday's our day off, and we do as much as we can. As soon as the last show finishes on a Friday at 8 o'clock, by 8:15, the computers are off, the chairs are away, we are shutting down. Now, 2 Saturdays ago, which is interesting on this report, we shut down. Saturday happened. We had a boiler breakdown. The guy came 5 hours. And it was a sort of repair, whereas, it's fixed now. 2 minutes later, before he left, it breaks. 5 hours later, completely ruined the day. We did not get a day off. We had no rest. And of course, the next day we're back at work in the lunchtime, basically. And so I was absolutely exhausted. By the time I got to 2 Fridays ago, I was utterly spent. Now, last Saturday, just gone, was beautiful. It was wonderful. We had a complete day off. We had a matinee. We watched Singing in the Rain. It was beautiful. It was a proper, full-on, rest day. But when we lose that rest day, boy, you feel it the next day.
You absolutely do. And isn't it interesting in the Bible when God rested on the Sunday, he didn't need to rest. He's God. And the Bible tells us he doesn't slumber or sleep. He doesn't need to. He did it as an example to us. This is what you need to do because you're not God, you're people, and you need to rest.
God loves us so much. I mean, I know not taking off the John 3:16, but God loved us so much. He took a seventh day off to make the point of having a rest. Of course, if you're a farmer, not so easy. You're going to work a 7 day week. But again, you have to find something in your life how you can take that downtime.
Farmers, and I know one well. There are times, not least around harvest time, when literally every day counts. Well, okay, and God knows that. So after harvest, then you need to take more time off. We've got to listen not only to our bodies but also to what God says and take it seriously. He knows when there was times, and Jesus worked very, very hard and tried to get a rest, and then people came needing healing, and he was interrupted, but he still took some time away. And it may not be hard and fast and rigid, not least when your boiler breaks down, but we do need to follow the Maker's instructions.
Always. Interestingly, though, 5 hours maximum exercise, 6 hours a maximum of work day. There's an hour difference, which I picked up on.
Yes, I don't know why. That's what came out of the survey. And it's perhaps, that was one survey, and it's only one survey out of, maybe more work needs to be done. But it's saying that we don't have unlimited resources. We are limited, whether it's running around or whether it's working. Otherwise, if we carry on, we will break the machine.
I'm fascinated, though. I can't think of a single job I've ever known, other than part-time, where you could actually do a 6 hour work day. I can't think of anything where that even is currently a possibility.
Well, I do wonder, dare I say, perhaps being a bit controversial here, whether working from home, people actually work a full 8 hours. And people say that actually they can do more at home than they can going to the office. And of course, going to the office, often with large commutes, detracts from what you can do. So probably you can certainly do the 6 hour days when you're working from home because you're not having all the travel that's necessary either side. But it's certainly a thought that if people can work harder and achieve more in 6 hours, it's just, if I was still a partner at work, we could probably do a test to say to people, okay, look, it's up to you. This is the amount of work you need to do. What suits you best? Do you want to do it more slowly over 8, or can you do it quicker over 6? What suits you best?
Interestingly, in my wife's last job, if she had an important report to do, the kind of reports that take 3 minutes to write, kind of report, when it was coming to some of the documents, it was always advised to them, do this from home. Because in the office, it was because there was no kind of sensible management. Everyone was shouting on phones. It's just, even with noise cancelling headphones, which she was given, it is impossible to concentrate on a really intricately difficult document. It's like saying to a surgeon in a theatre, yeah, we're just going to have the buses coming through. Can you just direct traffic? Because there are times when you really do need to be able to focus and not have lots of distractions.
Very true. But I think the big picture, leaving aside the sort of the numbers, is that yeah, we can and we should enjoy our work. And probably if you don't, if you can, look for another job, because it's just not suiting how you're wired. Maybe that's not as easy as said than done, but to the number of people I see coming to see me as a GP with stress at work. Stress at work is a very common heading in my life, and the answer is almost always, apart from one guy who ran his own company and just needed to work a bit less hard, everybody else was having stresses from outside. And they just, they couldn't control it, whether it's line managers or difficult customers or usually a difficult colleague. You just need to leave and you'll be so much happier. And they leave and they are so much happier.
It's interesting, though, because if you go back 40, 50 years, you would have been told, stick at your job, don't care if you don't enjoy it, you've got to get the bread on the table, so just keep going. And so many people with mental health into their 50s and 60s retiring because, do you know what? It's okay to move on if it's causing you mental health issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's important. Again, we're not saying it's possible for everybody. I understand that. But where it is possible, yeah, listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to your GP.
But at least investigate if there's something different you can do. There might be a different role you could do in the work you've got. There might be a different department, or just, can I just do something different for a time? Because sometimes, I mean, a change is as good as a rest. As a phrase, it's not actually bad.
No, I agree. I agree. And we want people to do well. And yeah, and this study shows actually you can enjoy your work. And so, that's perhaps surprising in this day and age, but it's true. This is a modern survey. This isn't from the 1900s. This is an up-to-date survey, and that's what it states. So yeah, let's try and do so.
I have one question of curiosity, though, which you're probably going to say you don't know the answer to, but is that 6 hours non-stop, or is it 6 hours over a period of time?
Well, I think well, I don't know because I didn't hear that, but it's very hard to work 6 hours non-stop. And
Mm.
if you do work 6 hours non-stop, you probably aren't enjoying it. So I would imagine it's 6 hours of work with breaks, so perhaps 7 hours with an hour's break, but 6 hours actual work.
But that's not far off a normal work day, is it?
No, I mean, well, I don't know. I think most
Ish.
people would work. I mean, if you think you're probably right, 37 and a half hours per week seems to be a normal day with, say, an hour's break in the middle.
Mm.
So it's not very far from where people are. But I think what they're saying is beyond that, and it's becoming a lot less enjoyable. And certainly, I'm thinking about my days as a junior doctor. My goodness, the huge hours that we did. I can't say they were enjoyable.
No,
All good for
trucking.
me. Mm.
No, trucking. I did nights for a while. Not good for you. Did it for 8 months, 12-hour nights. It's not a pretty end.
Not how we're designed. Mm.
No, which is fascinating there, but we want our parcel the next day. The only way you're going to get your Amazon parcel the next day is if some trucker like me then goes to a parcel place at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then drives overnight to get your parcel where it's got to be. It's the only way
Well,
you
but
get
you see, in that case, the system is failing because we need to be less demanding,
it.
so that the truckers can have a better life. And perhaps if it was put that way, look, you're going to have to wait 36 hours, not 24 hours for your parcel. That's life because actually the truckers matter.
They do. I was a trucker for nearly 20 years, and yeah, it's a tough job. It's a very unrewarding job most of the time. I finished on the same salary 20 years later as I started in a different job, which does make a point about salaries. But yeah, it was a tough job, and you're not wanted except for what you're carrying that people do want, but don't want you in the way, and it does generate quite a bit of stress.
Funny enough, I'm thinking of truckers. I read an article in the paper about someone who tried to be a bin man in Birmingham for a day, was absolutely exhausted
Yeah.
after just one day of doing didn't realize the 30,000 steps the bin men do, the amount of lifting. Okay, they don't lift completely into the wagon, but they do some lifting. And he was exhausted, I think, after moving 40 bins. And of course, they moved something like 300 each per day. And looking at the salary they got was about 25,500. On average, these people have been doing it for many years. He said, they deserve more money, because they are doing a valuable job, and it's really hard work. It was an eye opener.
Yeah, and I think it is for many of us when we actually stop to look and think, okay, so I have this pen, it came in a packet, it came through the post person brought it to my house. How did it get to the post person? Probably a trucker put it overnight. This isn't about truckers, but it's about, and I think what you said was the most profound thing. We need to be a less demanding society.
Less demanding. Because it's not, if we're just a me society, it's all about me and stuff everybody else, then of course society is in a terrible place. And that is to a large extent where we are. We need to be much more, okay, who cares if it's an extra 12 hours, if a trucker has a better life? In fact, I care. That's a much better way of doing things. I do care. We should be more open to other people.
We should run for the parliament, Richard. We should change the world. less needy. Let's slow everything down. But you getting rid of when Sunday trading was brought in, that I think did change society in the UK in a really bad way.
And interestingly, there was again another article in the paper recently where some island somewhere off Scotland is resisting. I think it's Tesco's or the equivalent, trying to bring in Sunday trading, and they're saying we're not having it. We've seen the effect this has elsewhere, where it's not happening on our island. And I thought, oh, well done. I can't remember which island it was, but well done.
I want to go and live there.
Yeah,
quite honestly.
Yeah.
It makes a difference, though. It really does. If we don't have that stop time, that break time, and that's where working from home, especially around this, there are some sectors it's never going to work. If you're a police officer, please don't work from home. It's not going to work. We need you on the streets. But if you are working in all sorts of office environments, it might work. But the danger there, of course, is that you get up and do half an hour, have a break, do half an hour, and you've just done 10-hour day, and you're wondering why you're tired. That is another negative slant.
Can stretch, absolutely.
Very easily, because you're not in that fixed working environment. I like this one quite a lot. It's good, but we need to think about our working lives. It matters.
Yeah, and everything matters to God, and work definitely matters to God, which is why it's so frequently spoken about in Scripture.
I could answer this next question for you. As you're coming towards retirement, do you wish that you could have worked more?
No, you're absolutely right. But that said, I don't want to just lie on a beach in the Caribbean in my retirement. There's plenty I want to do, and I think somebody actually said to me today, who's a year older than me. He's retired previously. He said, retirement is a gift. He's a Christian. He's thinking about how best to use his retirement, and I'll be doing the same. So there will be work in a different way with a bit more time off, but other things I've not been able to do. And yeah, I'm going to treat retirement as a gift from God, and like all gifts, it needs to be exercised.
Amen to that. Indeed, exercise your days off, people. Take your day off. It's not good to work too hard.
No.
Richard, thank you. Back next week for more of the same. Thank you. If you've got any questions for Richard on anything we've said, you can come back to us always. Any medical questions, you can send them to us as well. The way to do that is hello@pure247radio.org. hello@pure247radio.org. Richard, thank you.
My pleasure. All the best.
Pure Media, the magazine, is hand-perfected with some of the finest writers from around the world that we could find. And yes, Andy B too. New editions are released just for you on the first Friday of every month, from our family to your family. Pure Media, the magazine, is available now. Sign up for free at puremediafamily.com/magazine.